Nobody dies in One Piece. This is a phrase nearly every person who knows One Piece has heard. However, what if I told you that that is completely wrong, and there are actually 16,879 confirmed deaths in One Piece? If you go through the entire One Piece manga from Romance Dawn to Wano, 16,879 characters die, and many more are not confirmed to be dead. In this video, I will be reading every single One Piece chapter up to the end of Wano to find every single confirmed death. Only the manga will be counted, so no filler arcs or anime scenes will be considered. I will also be counting unconfirmed deaths for characters who have not been confirmed dead, or have taken major injuries but haven't been seen since their supposed death. An example of this would be a background character who gets shot, but we never see them again. We don't know what happens to them, and thus they are marked as an unconfirmed death. Without further ado, we start with Romance Dawn, the arc that started this legendary series. Romance Dawn kicks off with the first and possibly most important death in all of One Piece, the execution of Pirate King Gold Roger. Our next death is some random mountain bandit who worked for Higuma, who was shot in the head by Lucky Roo. And to end off this first chapter, we get the death of Higuma himself, who was eaten by the Lord of the Coast after trying to kill Luffy. Now we move on to the present day One Piece, and we meet Alvida, who seemingly kills one of her crewmates for not properly dusting the ship. This dude is a normal guy and he got hit in the head with a metal club, so he's likely dead. After this, we head to Shell's Town and meet Zoro, who's being hung on a cross for the crime of killing a dog. This brings up the question of whether animal deaths count as deaths, and for this video I will not be counting animal deaths, mostly because so many animals die in the series, and usually they're because Luffy is just hungry. This video will be twice as long if I counted them, even though they do seem sentient since characters like Luffy and Shirahoshi can talk to animals, but I'm just not going to count them. Next we get to meet Captain Axehand Morgan, who was murdering one of his subordinates for not murdering a child. It is not confirmed, but Helmeppo says he died, and an average marine probably can't survive a giant axe to the face. Finally, for Romance Dawn, we get the death of Kuina, Zoro's childhood friend who was killed by the strongest character in One Piece, Down D Stairs. With the death of Kuina, we end the first One Piece arc with a solid 6 deaths. Next up is Orange Town, which is also an extremely short arc with very little going on. Our first death is when Buggy is introduced, where Buggy kills one of his crewmates with his massive balls. There may have been a few other deaths due to Buggy blowing up Orange Town, again with his massive balls, but we see that most of the town evacuated when Buggy came. After this, we meet Choo Choo the dog, whose owner died of an illness, and now Choo Choo protects his owner's shop to remember him. I can't believe a random dog has one of the most tragic backstories in the series. Either way, that's one death, and finally Luffy uses 2 Buggy pirates and Richie the lion as meat shields, potentially killing them, although Richie did survive. Orange Town ends with 2 deaths and 2 unconfirmed deaths. We skip past the Island of Rare Animals because it isn't even an arc and nobody dies in it. Syrup Village is next, and we start strong with the death of Kaya's parents. They died of unknown causes since Kuro claims that their deaths were not part of his grand plan. We skip ahead to Kuro's backstory where Kuro slaughters an entire marine ship except for 1 marine, and sacrifices one of his crew to be executed by the marines. I counted a total of 17 marines that are shown on the ship dead, but there could have been more. In total, the scene gives us 18 deaths. You might think Kuro would have killed some of his crewmates with his ultimate attack, the Pussyfoot maneuver, but he said that Luffy stopped the attack before he is able to kill anyone. We end the arc with the confirmed death of Usopp's mom, who died of an unknown illness when Usopp was a child. We end one of the weakest One Piece arcs with 21 deaths. We start Baratie strong with the introduction of Gin, who shoots a marine to death while entering the restaurant. In Carne's introduction to Krieg, he mentioned how Krieg killed the crew of a marine ship, but since we don't know how large that crew was, we'll call it 2 marines. To be on the light side, if a character states that they've killed a bunch of people, it'll only count as 2. Once we finally meet Krieg himself, he reveals that he had a fleet of 50 ships with a total crew of 5,000. If you look at Krieg's fleet now, it's 1 ship with barely 100 pirates on it, all killed by Mihawk. It's not confirmed that they died, but considering the state of their flagship and the rest of the crew having little strength, and they were fighting against the world's greatest swordsmen in the most dangerous waters, it's safe to say that they died and we're never going to see them again. We now see Krieg kill 2 of his men for mutiny, since they didn't want to go back to Grand Line and be slaughtered again. We then get the first of 2 Sanji backstories. where we get the confirmed death of all the cruise ship passengers and the cook pirates caught in the storm. The only survivors are Sanji and Zeph confirms that they all died. I was able to count 39 unique characters that are shown on these ships, although there is likely more. Finally, we get Gin, who was poisoned by Krieg's deadliest weapon, the MH5 gas. However, Gin was strong enough to survive this dangerous weapon and has been confirmed alive as he appeared in Egghead Island as a background cameo. We end off Bratier with the highest kill count of the series so far, 4,948. Next is Arlong Park. We start this arc with this little kid named Chabo. His father and a bunch of other people from his village were killed, so it will count as a total of 3 deaths. Next is the presumed death of all of the Arlong pirates in Arlong Park when Zoro took them all out. Arlong claims his men were slaughtered, so it seems they are dead. However, we aren't sure, and they could have easily just been knocked out, so that will be 10 unconfirmed deaths. Next is Commodore Pudding Pudding. I mean, if my name were Pudding Pudding, I'd imagine I'd die pretty quickly. This guy and his ship full of marines are immediately destroyed by the Arlong officers and drowned at the bottom of the sea. I was able to count 11 generic marines and Pudding, so this is 12 deaths. We then get to see Bellemare in the Nami backstory, which shows 3 dead marines in the battle that Bellemare found Nami and Nojiko at, and not too long after, Bellemare is shot in the head. Finally, we have a random Arlong pirate who was used by Luffy as a meat shield. I doubt we're seeing this unnamed fishman again, and Arlong was using a pretty strong attack, so it could have killed him. Arlong Park only ends with 30 kills and 11 unconfirmed kills. Logtown is very short, so not too much happens. The closest we get to an actual death is when Tashigi cuts down 2 pirates, but even then it would be extremely out of character for her to actually kill them. However, we never see them again and the slash could have been lethal, so that will be 2 unconfirmed kills. Outside of that, we learned that the Katetsu blades are cursed and have led swordsmen to their deaths. We don't know how many people used the Sandai Katetsu before Zoro, so this will only count as 2 kills. We end this short arc with 2 kills and 2 unconfirmed kills. Reverse Mountain is also a short arc with not much going on. We only meet 3 characters and none of them say anything about characters dying. The only confirmed death in this arc is some guy who's eaten by Laboon. We leave Reverse Mountain with only 1 kill. Whiskey Peak starts off with everyone getting drunk. Once everyone is asleep, Zoro confronts the 100 bounty hunters, stating that he killed the previous Mr. 7. Zoro proceeds to quickly take out all of the bounty hunters aside from Mr. 8, Mr. 9, Ms. Wednesday, Ms. Monday, and a fake nun and child, who were hit with the back of Zoro's sword and not killed. It depends on the translation whether Zoro killed these bounty hunters, and even the wiki doesn't confirm anything. These 94 bounty hunters will be marked as unconfirmed kills. Finally, we get the reveal that every spike on the cactus rocks is a gravestone, each marking someone who died, presumably to the Whiskey Peak bounty hunters. I do not have the time to count every single tiny black line coming out of these rocks, and in one close-up shot of one side of one of the smallest rocks, I counted about 300 graves. I estimate all of the rocks would have roughly had 5,000 graves across them, but the number could be much higher. We leave Whiskey Peak with the highest kill count of 5,001 and 94 unconfirmed kills. You would expect quite a few deaths from Little Garden since it's basically a Jurassic Park island, but surprisingly there are only 6 confirmed kills. These 6 are some skulls of previous pirates who were killed waiting for the log post to reset on the island. The girl from the Dory and Bragi flashback may have died due to old age, but we know that humans can survive to at least 141, and this event was only 100 years ago, so she'll be an unconfirmed kill. We leave Little Garden with 6 kills and 1 unconfirmed kill. We move on to Drum Island, where nothing happens for the first third of the arc until the Fat Man shows up. Once Wapol, shows up to Drum Island, he kills all of the Drum Kingdom soldiers guarding the port. I was only able to count 6 guards, and a later guard confirmed that they are dead. We then get the confirmed death of the previous king of Drum Island, Wapol's father, who died of unknown causes and led to Wapol becoming king. We then meet Dr. Hiruluk, who shoots a family and fails to cure their father. The people he shot are likely fine since they're tranquilizer bullets, but Hiruluk may have killed the patient, since he messed up the cure, and we never see if he recovers. Hiruluk then blows himself up after heroically giving one of the most iconic speeches in the series. Finally, we know Wapol executed some doctors during the Drum Island doctor hunt, but we never get a number, so that will be only 2 confirmed kills. We end Drum Island with 10 kills and 1 unconfirmed kill. Alabasta starts off strong with Mr. 11 being shot dead by his former allies, the Millions. After meeting Ace, Ace fire fists 5 Baroque work ships, each seeming to have about 20 people on them. However, they aren't confirmed dead. When Luffy and his gang arrive at Yuba, we get to see a grave and a skull, so 2 more deaths. We meet Koza, leader of the rebels, and he states that there are graves of rebels to scare off a kid who wants to join them. We cut to the actual Civil War, where there are no confirmed deaths, or even unconfirmed ones, for the first chunk of it. When Crocodile makes it to the palace, we meet the Kick and Claw Force, 4 of the strongest members of the Royal Army, who proceed to ingest steroids and die attempting to fight Crocodile. They don't even fight the guys since he didn't want to fight them. Now we get the debatable kills of the assassin characters like Dazbones and Robin, who both claim to be professional assassins, yet neither have any confirmed kills, and neither have given any evidence of their kills. This is more for Robin's backbreaking attack, which has never had a confirmed kill even against Spandam, who has a power level of 9, which is weaker than even fodder Marines. After the Civil War and Crocodile is defeated, we learn that Vivi's mother died at some point before the series to unknown causes. Finally, we see 6 graves in the graveyard where Shaka visits the dead Pell, who isn't actually dead because flying-type Pokemon have a type advantage to point-blank nukes. We end Alabasta with 17 kills and 100 unconfirmed kills. On the Straw Hats' journey to Jaya, they nearly get killed by a ship that fell from Skypiea, which notably has a bunch of skeletons on board, with one falling onto Usopp and another in a coffin being examined by Robin. Once Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji dive down to the wreck, Sanji finds a picture of a woman from 200 years ago, so she's likely dead. And the skeleton next to the picture is implied to be the woman, since both have harpoons through their head. This will be counted as 1 death, and in total the ship gives us 3 deaths. Once we land on Jaya, we witness Bellamy stab a dude, light him on fire, and throw him out a window because he won a card game. This guy is Rosho the Executioner, and he has been confirmed dead by external media. Once Luffy, Zoro, and Nami meet Doc Q, the doctor of the Blackbeard Pirates whose hobby is giving out randomized bomb apples, we learn that 5 people ate the explosive ones, and 1 lit a store on fire in a massive explosion. I think it's safe to say that these 5 people are dead since they basically ate a grenade, and a grenade is powerful enough to blow up an entire building. Jaya ends with 9 deaths. It takes a while to find our first death in Skypiea, and the unfortunate person to be killed first is Zabo. No, not Luffy's brother, but this random Skypiean doing stuff in Upper Yard for no apparent reason. He was chased out of Upper Yard by the priests, and struck down by a crazy amount of lightning by NL, leaving a crater and no body. We can't be sure that he died, but no normal person could survive that blast, and the wiki says that he died. Next we get to see Ohm's part of Upper Yard, which is covered in spikes with skulls on them. We see 12 of the spikes up close, and I estimate there to be 100 in the background. Once Luffy gets eaten by Nola, we get to see a skull in the foreground while Luffy searches for treasure. A little while after the death game starts, NL wiped out his palace since he had no need for it, potentially killing 2 attendants who served him. These characters never reappear in the series and are severely burned by NL's lightning, so they will be marked as dead. Soon after, Caunus and Pagaya find this random royal guard, who reveals NL's true plan with the Ark. Shortly after, Pagaya and the unnamed guard are struck by lightning, the same attack that killed Zabo. Pagaya has the will of peace, so he survived, but we never see the other guard again. This guard will be listed as dead, mostly since he's never seen again or mentioned. After this, it is revealed that NL destroyed Burka, only leaving his priests alive. We don't know what Burka's population is, so it'll be 2 deaths, even though its population was likely much higher. After this, Wiper was able to surprise attack NL using a projectile right on his heart, killing him. NL proceeds to revive himself though with his devil fruit by shocking his heart back to life. I'm not sure whether to count this as a death, since he had to be a little bit alive to use his devil fruit, but it'll be counted as a revival regardless. We now get to the Nolan flashback, which is going to have a lot of deaths because it takes place 400 years ago. There is no way a human can survive for 400 years, and not even giants can survive that long, as the longest living giant is 345. This means that every single person in this flashback is dead. I counted 447 people shown in the flashback, most of which were people who showed up to Nolan's execution. This number includes the major characters like Nolan and Kagura. After NL is defeated by Luffy, we learn that the priests of NL, minus Gadatsu, are banished to drift the clouds, which is a death sentence. However, it has not been confirmed whether Om, Satori, Shiro, and Yama have died since, so they will be marked as unconfirmed deaths. For the rest of God's army, they have not been confirmed to be punished in any way, so they won't be listed. We end Skypiea with 565 deaths, 4 unconfirmed kills, and 1 revival. Finally, we get to everyone's favorite arc, Long Ring Longland, and the villain of the arc, the extremely deadly pirate known as Foxy D. Silver Fox. This treacherous pirate has been stealing crew members of other pirate crews in Davy Back fights, usually leaving them without vital crew members like the captain, which is exactly what happened to the Fang Toad pirates, who were first destroyed by Foxy, and then destroyed again by sea monkeys who sunk their boat. I was able to count 13 crew members on board, and they're likely dead since there's no trace of their ship after it was sunk. The wiki also doesn't give me much in the way of confirmation, just saying that they met their fate against the sea monkeys. Outside of this, the arc has no confirmed or unconfirmed deaths, mostly because it's so short and inconsequential. We end Long Ring Longland with 13 kills. Also, ironically, Foxy probably has a higher kill count than Luffy. Surprisingly, Water 7 is a pretty peaceful arc with absolutely no death in the main part of the arc. The closest anyone comes to dying is when CP9 attempts to assassinate Iceberg, but he's just built different and survives being shot. Twice. Our only deaths from this arc are in the Tom flashback, which shows us a Water 7 that's collapsing due to trade issues. The dialogue here tells us that the number 4 shipbuilding company lost 50 men at sea when they tried to get materials for new ships. After this, Tom is presumably executed after being escorted to Enies Lobby for the crime of building the Oro Jackson, Gold Roger's ship. We never see him die though, and even the wiki doesn't fully confirm his execution. Sadly, we have to list Tom as dead, just because all the evidence points to him being executed. We end Water 7 with surprisingly only 51 kills. It's a little unclear when Enies Lobby officially starts, so I'll be saying that everything that happens on the trains before Enies Lobby will be part of that arc, and not Water 7. This means that Soga King gets to claim the first unconfirmed death as he shoots a random marine into the violent waters of Aqua Laguna. He's never seen again, but he could have survived, as a character like Captain T-Bone was able to survive the waters with a much more serious injury. Next is the CP9 rookie Sea Weasel Nero, master of 4 of the 6 powers, who gets fingered by Rob Lucci into Aqua Laguna. This guy is never seen again or even mentioned after expulsion from CP9, and Lucci hit him with a pretty strong attack. However, Nero can fly, making it possible for him to survive. After this, we finally arrive at Enies Lobby proper, where CP9 is just hanging around and Kumadori is being strange. Kumadori reveals that his mother is in heaven, so she is dead. We can add that to the list of dead One Piece mothers. Now we get the Ohara flashback, another flashback where literally everyone dies. We start off with the death of Robin's father, which I'm pretty sure is confirmed in the flashback, but I just couldn't find it. Now I had to count roughly everyone we see on Ohara, and I counted about 124 people. The citizens were blown up by Sakazuki, and the archaeologists were executed by Cypherpole. Jaguar D. Sol, however, is still alive, something that we learn on Egghead Island. After this, we learn of Rob Lucci's backstory, who became infamous through his mission where 500 soldiers were held captive by pirates. Lucci murdered them all, plus the pirate crew that held them captive, with Luffy decapitating the pirate captain for proof of his murder spree. The rest of Enies Lobby plays out deathless until Spandam's accidental buster call, which destroys the island, and presumably the 5,000 marines stationed on the island. The Frankie family and the other people who joined the Straw Hats barely survived the attack, and there are way more marines than them spread all throughout the island, making survival unlikely for most of them, especially the ones who had already been taken out. We never get any confirmation, however, so their fates are still a mystery. Our final death of Enies Lobby is a bit of a strange one, that being the Going Merry. Despite being a boat, the ship has been shown to talk to Usopp and Iceberg, and even repair itself on Skypiea. This is explained as the Clawbatter Man, how the hell do you pronounce that, who is basically the spirit of the ship and not much more beyond that. Whether this means that the ship is alive or not, or the ship and Clawbatterman are separate entities, is still up in the air, so I have to put Merry in a category of its own. We end Enies Lobby with 626 deaths, 5,002 unconfirmed deaths, and the unclear death of the Going Merry. Post-endings lobby surprisingly has no deaths, since it's basically just a party for the Straw Hats and a reveal that Garp is Luffy's grandfather. There isn't even anything close to a death in this arc, so we just move on to... Despite this arc being a slog, we very quickly get our first death. Kind of. Brook died and came back to life because of his devil fruit, so we will count him as a revival. Next, we have every zombie on Thriller Bark. About midway through the arc, we're shown a panel with a zombie being constructed that has the number 741 on it, implying that it is the 741st zombie to be made. This also goes with the other zombies who have numbered armbands, and since the zombie looks to be unfinished, it is most likely the most recent zombie, so there wouldn't have been any zombies with a higher number. This means that there are 741 zombies made from the corpses of dead people. Even though some of the zombies appear less humanoid, I still list them as 741 deaths, just because we aren't sure how many human parts were grafted onto each zombie. This number also includes major zombies like Sindri, Ryuma, and Ors. After this, we get to see a graveyard filled with roughly 54 graves, adding another 54 kills to the counter. After this, we deviate from Thriller Bark itself to the cover story of chapter 452, which depicts the only death to happen in a cover story. This is Tsukimi, and honestly I don't know who this guy is. I didn't pay attention to the cover story. I just know that he died because the moon exploded. After Gecko Moria's defeat, we get to see Brook's backstory with Laboon and the Rumbar Pirates, a pirate crew with no living members other than Brook. First, half the crew got infected with an incurable disease, including the captain. The crew sailed through the Calm Belt back to West Blue and was never heard from again. I counted 40 Rumbar Pirates later on, so I'll assume that 40 left the crew plus Yorkie. They'll be marked as presumed dead because we don't have any confirmation that they died, and many people speculate that Yorkie is still alive. After this, the remaining Rumbar Pirates died to an unknown force in the Florian Triangle, leaving Brook as the only survivor because of his devil fruit. This adds 40 more deaths to the counter. We end Thriller Bark with 786 confirmed kills and 41 unconfirmed kills. Sabaody is a relatively short arc and it doesn't have many deaths. First, we have this guy who's a slave for the Celestial Dragons, and when he attempts to escape, his collar detonates, which is supposed to kill him. However, this random guy manages to survive this explosion, so he's fine. Our first actual death of the arc is this random skeleton that has been pinned to this sign. Next, we get to the slave auction, where Pirate Captain Lakuba attempts to unalive himself on stage, but is unsuccessful and is seen escaping later in the arc. You would think that some Marines would have died when Law decapitated them, but luckily his devil fruit leaves everyone alive. Finally, one of Basil Hawkins' crewmates may have been killed after Kizaru laser-kicked Hawkins. Hawkins' devil fruit acts very strangely since there doesn't seem to be a defined limit for how much damage each person can tank and when they are ejected from Hawkins. In later fights, Hawkins states that he would let Killer kill Kid without him knowing about it, implying that if Hawkins took enough damage, Kid would have died. Theoretically, this would apply to other people Hawkins uses, and they would only be ejected if they die, but this is never confirmed. We'll have to rule this guy as an unconfirmed kill just because of how mysterious Hawkins' devil fruit is. We end Sabaody Archipelago with 1 death and 1 unconfirmed kill. Amazon Lily is extremely short and doesn't have any on-screen deaths. Its 2 deaths are Fisher Tiger and the previous Empress of Amazon Lily. Fisher Tiger is merely stated to be dead in this arc, and it's expanded on in Fishman Island, and the previous Empress died to love sickness before the series, and we recently saw her design in an SBS segment. We end Amazon Lily with 2 kills. Impel Down is one of the darker arcs in the series, and it fittingly has quite a few on-screen deaths. At the start of the arc, we get a quick shot of the inside of the prison, with 2 of the panels having skulls on them. Between these 2 panels, I counted 20 skulls. The next death comes shortly after when Luffy, Buggy, and Mr. 3 arrive at level 3, the Starvation Hell. Immediately after arriving here, the trio get to look at this poor guy who's just chilling on this thing. That's 1 more death. Later on, when Luffy reaches level 4, Boiling Hell, he gum fireworks 12 guards into the soup, which is boiling and on fire. We never see these guys again, and I highly doubt they would have survived since they are much stronger than your average Marine. We end Impel Down with 33 deaths, which would have been much higher if Magellan wasn't shitting his pants the whole time. Like, actually, this guy almost killed 3 Emperors of the Sea. Finally, we get to the legendary Marineford arc. We start this arc strong with a flashback showing the death of Portgas de Rouge, Ace's mother, who died shortly before he was born. She's also the only character to have a confirmed death date, since it's the same as Ace's birthday, January 1st. After this, Boa Hancock petrifies these Marines and shatters them, maybe killing them. It's notable that they weren't fully petrified, though. Soon after, Ors Jr. gets his leg cut off and collapses, being taken out of the war. Later on, he gets up and goes for another attempt to save Ace, only to be taken down again and bleed out into the Marineford doors and block them, only to never be seen again. We don't know what happened to him, and since he's an ancient giant, I doubt he's dead, so he's an unconfirmed kill. Now we get possibly the most famous death in the series, Ace becoming a donut. Congratulations, Ace, for being the 12,239th death in the series. Very soon after this, we learn why Ace was going after Blackbeard in the first place. Blackbeard killed Thatch, the old 4th Division commander, to get the Dark Fruit, leading to Whitebeard kicking Blackbeard out of the crew. Back to the present day, Whitebeard shouts,
"The One Piece! The One Piece is real!"
in the second most famous One Piece death. With that final epic death, we end Marineford with 9 deaths and 6 unconfirmed deaths. Wow, I kind of expected more out of Marineford. This part is focused on the stuff between the Luffy, Ace, and Saba flashback and the end of Luffy's training, even if it's barely an arc. Either way, we start in the past, where Luffy is being interrogated by Porshami to learn the location of Ace and Sabo's treasure. After failing at this task and getting beat up by a bunch of kids, his captain Blue Jam kills Porshami. After this, Blue Jam sets the Grey Terminal on fire and ends up in a fight with Dayton and Ace in the middle of it with his crew. After this, Blue Jam and his crew are never seen again. His crew was knocked out by Ace, and Blue Jam is presumed to have been knocked out by Dayton and Ace, so I doubt that they couldn't have survived the massive fire, and they will be listed as dead. Sabo is confirmed alive later on in the series, so we skip the Jewelry Bonnie getting beat up by Blackbeard, and Blackbeard attempting to take her as his woman. Minus the fact that Blackbeard might be able to join the ranks of the PDF files, Bonnie's crew is destroyed by Blackbeard, and we never see them again, not even on Egghead Island where Bonnie is a main character. Bonnie's crew had about 15 members, so that will be 15 unconfirmed kills. Before we get to the post-time skip era, let me just say thank you if you made it this far, and thanks for watching. We start off the post-time skip era with Return to Sabaody, which is a relatively quick and not serious arc. Our first unconfirmed kills are these two who Damaro Black just shoots. They're never confirmed dead, but they're just normal people who were shot. Afterwards, Wet-Haired Caribou makes his debut by stabbing a Marine through the chest, but he couldn't bury him alive since he was interrupted. We never learned what happens to the Marine afterwards, and he took a pretty heavy hit, so he's unconfirmed dead. Finally, we have the fake Straw Hats, which may have been killed by Caribou, as they are never seen again and Caribou wanted to kill them. At least we know Damaro Black is doing good, since he's in jail posing as Eustace Kid now. We end Return to Sabaody with 11 unconfirmed kills. Yay, we get to arguably the worst arc in the series. Fishman Island starts with a random skeleton at the bottom of the ocean. After this, we meet Vanderdecken, who is the 8th Vanderdecken, with the previous 7 dying long before the series started. No deaths happen for the first half of the arc, until we get the Otohime flashback. The obvious death is Otohime, who was shot by Hody Jones, as well as her framed human assassin was also murdered by Hody. You might be wondering about Fisher Tiger's death, but since he was confirmed dead in Amazon Lily, it's technically an Amazon Lily death, despite being shown in Fishman Island. Cut back to the modern day and we get to see the new Fishman pirates forcing the citizens of Fishman Island to trample an Otohime picture, and this one guy is face down and potentially dead, since that is the punishment for not trampling the picture. We get to meet Daedalus, the squid fishman who is mortally afraid of becoming dried squid because his old friend Icaros died of becoming dried squid. Daedalus then turns a new Fishman pirate into dried squid using his squid lance, potentially killing him. Soon after, the new Fishman pirates destroyed a royal army, potentially killing 12 members of the army. However, the general survived, so it's hard to say. Sticking with the army, one army member attempts to bomb Hody, but he is shot and killed before he can light his vest. Skipping to after the ultimate battle between the Straw Hats and the new Fishman pirates, we learn of Joy Boy and Poseidon, who are both from the Void Century and therefore dead. We also don't know if the new Fishman pirates have died yet, as they were all turned extremely old after their fight with the Straw Hats, and after a while they might have died in prison. However, nothing's confirmed, so they won't be listed at all. We end Fishman Island with 15 deaths and 14 unconfirmed kills. We go from a bad arc to a mediocre arc, and our first death is presumably the person sending out the distress call that the Straw Hats pick up, as the call gets cut off when he is presumably sliced up by Kinemon. We never learn the fate of this guy, so he's an unconfirmed death. Thankfully, we skip the extremely boring part of the arc, since our next unconfirmed deaths are the Yeti Cool Brothers, as one is knocked out by Chopper and the other one is cut in half by Law. They are never seen again, so they are unconfirmed deaths. After this, Smiley is unleashed onto the island, killing 2 centaurs, which I'm not sure if it's confirmed that they died, but the wiki makes it sound like they did. Soon after, Smiley invades Smoker's ship, and the Marines have the big brain idea of lighting it on fire, causing Smiley to explode and destroy the ship, presumably killing all the Marines on it. I estimated there to be 20 Marines on the ship when it exploded. Right after this, Caesar Clown feeds Smiley some suspicious candy, killing it and turning it into Shinokuni. It's kind of hard to tell whether or not Smiley should count as a death, as it was a toxic gas that ate the axolotl devil fruit. Whether or not this devil fruit made the gas conscious is debatable, as it seems that other non-human things that eat devil fruits only gain the consciousness of the fruit's animal, such as Mr. Four's cannon acting like a dog, and not showing any sentience outside of that. It's still hard to say whether this should count as a death due to my rule that animals don't count, so it will be marked as an unclear death. Anyways, Shinokuni immediately petrifies 10 of Caesar's henchmen. While petrification doesn't immediately kill people, it will eventually become fatal if untreated. I doubt anybody would have come back for these guys before they died, so they will be counted as dead. The rest of the people petrified get saved after Caesar's capture, so they aren't counted. After this, Law kills Virgo, although indirectly. Virgo gets defeated by Law and Smoker, and Law cuts Virgo into multiple pieces. Virgo is then killed when Monet blows up the Sad Factory. This also brings us to Monet, who is killed by Caesar, who stabbed her heart thinking it was Smoker's. Finally, we end the arc with the introduction of Baby 5, who has had 8 fiancés who have all been killed by Doflamingo. The end of Punk Hazard gives us 23 kills and 22 unconfirmed kills, and Smiley, who's a debatable death. Finally, we get to Dressrosa, and the first death surprisingly comes from Caribou's cover story. Apparently, Garbaroo the Revolutionary died before the story began, and he looked a lot like Caribou. Back to the actual arc, we re-meet Bellamy, and he tells us that his entire crew died when he went to Skypiea. I knew this was coming, so I made sure to count how many people were on Bellamy's crew back on Jaya, and I counted 12 crew members, including Sarki, his first mate. In the Coliseum, Lucy, quickly befriends Uchi, the brutal bull who has sent 21 men on a one-way trip to hell. This phrase is never elaborated on, and it is unclear whether this means Uchi killed them or just beat them up a lot. We get to skip a lot of this arc's meandering and skip towards the Kiro/Rebecca flashback, where we learn that Kairos killed 2 dudes who killed his friend. Later in this same flashback, we see 9 graves, which for some reason I cannot find in my files, but there's still 9 deaths regardless. Finally, we get the named death of Scarlet, who is Kairos' wife and Rebecca's mother, who is killed off-screen by Diamante. And now we get to one of the most disturbing flashbacks. If you know anything about Law, then you are probably waiting for the death count of his flashback. In this flashback, an entire town of people is killed by the Amber Lead disease, and Law is the only known survivor. In this flashback, I found roughly 44 unique characters, including the kids at the church and Law's family, which seems like a really small amount of death, but this flashback is only about half a chapter long. There are likely thousands killed by the disease, but they aren't confirmed. After this is Doflamingo's double flashback, where we get to see the death of Doflamingo's mother, who died of an unknown illness, and 4 people who are related to mob members who were torturing Doflamingo and his family. Yeah, this flashback is pretty dark, especially because it ends with Doflamingo getting an epic headshot on his father, killing him. We then cut back to the Law flashback, where in order to get the Op fruit, Doflamingo kills all the Barrels pirates, which consisted of roughly 20 crew members. Finally, the GOAT himself, Rosinante / Corazon, is killed by Doflamingo. Rip Legend. After that depressing flashback, we get the death of Lao Ji, who dies in battle as we see his spirit leave his body. However, Lao Ji is too old to die, and he just revives himself. Finally, we get the tragic Senior Pink flashback, where we learn that Pink's son died, which is legitimately one of the saddest deaths in the series. We end Dressrosa with a total of 111 deaths and 23 unconfirmed deaths, and 1 revival. We get to Zou. This arc is super mid in my opinion, and basically nothing happens death-wise. First, we get the death of Ryunosuke, the crappy drawing of a pink dragon that seemingly is alive and dies once his purpose was fulfilled. Whether this or any of Kanjuro's other drawings count as deaths is debatable, but because I don't want to recount everything Kanjuro has drawn, they aren't true deaths. After this, we learn of Jack's attack on Zou, where he used poison gas to almost wipe out the minks. However, none of them seem to have died from it or from Jack's 5-day attack. Finally, we get the destruction of Jack's fleet. Jack is the only character who was on those ships who has been seen afterwards, and even headliners like Sheepshed and Jim Rummy haven't been seen since. This heavily implies that everyone on board died, as most of them had smile fruits, and the only reason Jack survived was because he was a fishman. It is never confirmed that they died, however. We end Zou with 500 unconfirmed kills. The penultimate arc of this video is Whole Cake Island. Before we start this arc, we must get homies out of the way. Homies are inanimate objects brought to life with portions of people's souls created by Big Mom's Devil Fruit. Because they are only portions of a soul, they'll be counted in a separate category than normal deaths. With that said, a ton of homies die in this arc, and I likely missed a ton, as I'm not going to point out every specific homie death because they are usually killed in bulk. With that said, this arc starts off with Kaido giving this dude the Team Rocket treatment, presumably killing him. After that, we get Big Mom's weird musical number, where she says that she gets her cake ingredients through murder, while showing her kids grabbing some of those ingredients. There are 9 people shown in the background, and I assume they are dead, as they just lost to Big Mom's kids. Next is the introduction of the Vinsmokes, where they immediately sacrifice one of their soldiers just to prove a point. While they are clones, the little we see of them shows that they are in fact alive. In this same scene, we see 2 dead soldiers in the background, and this soldier says that Germa killed his wife and kids before being killed by Ichiji. Back to Big Mom, and she's rampaging across Totoland. I counted about 15 homies that were killed in the forest, and then Charlotte Moscato attempted to calm Big Mom down to buy time for the chefs. Big Mom promptly steals his entire soul, killing him. Apparently, after a hunger strike, he gets his soul back, but I could not find this scene. Even so, he'll be marked as a revival. There are 25 homies sacrificed to Big Mom to calm her, so they are also dead. When Jinbei requests to leave Big Mom eats a homie. Cutting back to the Straw Hats as they enter the seducing woods, we see a skeleton. Not much more to say, it seems pretty dead. Going to the Sanji flashback, we learn that Judge killed 4 North Blue Kings, becoming the most powerful kingdom in the north. Sanji then fights Judge, who sacrifices one of his soldiers just because he can, and he likes proving how much of a dick he is. We then learn of the death of Sanji's mother, who died to unknown causes. We lose 7 more homies when Luffy fights Cracker, and we learn of Zeppo's death when he and Pedro infiltrated Big Mom's territory and beat the shit out of Baron Tamago. We skip to the alliance between Capone Gang Beige and Luffy when they launched their attack on the Tea Party. It is here that a character you likely don't remember, Jigra, is shot by a supersonic jelly bean thrown by Katakuri. Before he is shot, he mentioned that Big Mom killed his dad because he didn't go to a tea party because his mom died. So that's 3 more deaths. Then the door homie is killed by Beige. During the wedding, when everything goes south, Katakuri attempts to shoot Sanji with a supersonic jelly bean, but Sanji dodges and the priest is shot instead, likely killing him. He is never seen again, so he's likely dead. Big Mom then goes insane and kills 3 chefs by stealing their souls. Now it's time for one of the most disturbing flashbacks in the series, the Big Mom flashback. We skip to the fast scene, where Big Mom suplexes Chief Jorul, killing him since he's ancient and can't heal anymore. Next, Big Mom consumes 22 kids and Mother Carmel. Yep, she just straight up ate them all. There are 11 kids on one side of the table, and we saw kids on the other side, so that makes 22 kids. There are also 2 graves seen next to Jorul's, so that's another 2 deaths. Back in the modern day, Lufeld, the Lone Shark King, is fingered by Stussy and might have died, as he's never seen again. This causes an explosion, and for the giant cake tower to collapse, but everyone's fine. When Big Mom is chasing the Straw Hats, King Bomb is cut in half, so that's another homie death. Finally, we get the legendary pee-off. 2 Will of Pea holders face off, but only 1 will live. Pedro suicide bombs Perospero to buy time for the Straw Hats, but because Perospero has 2 P's in his name, he lives. After all, 2 P's are better than 1. Anyway, after Pedro dies, Luffy and Katakuri face off, and after Luffy disturbs Katakuri's donut time, these 3 cooks see Katakuri's face. Katakuri doesn't like this, and he kills them with his spear. Pound is presumably killed by a Charlotte Oven, but later on he is revealed to somehow survived. The Will of Peace strikes again. When Luffy beats Katakuri and is escaping Chocolate Island, Peccoms assists Luffy but is taken down and has his eyes gouged out so he can't go Sulong. We never see Peccoms again, so it's unknown whether he died or not. When Big Mom chases after the Straw Hats, she destroys Nuts Island, but we see no injuries or anything. Finally, we end this long arc with 61 kills, 3 unconfirmed kills, 1 revival, and 49 homie deaths. This part of the reverie has no deaths in it, so we can just skip over it. Ugh, it's Wano time. Just due to the sheer length of this arc, there are a ton of deaths. Of the 10 pages of deaths that I found, 2 whole pages came from Wano. Well, let's get this started. First is the magistrate who may have been killed by Zoro. He got slashed pretty badly and he is never seen again, although people have survived much worse attacks. Next are Tama's parents, who aren't shown, but are confirmed dead by Tengu Hitetsu. When Basil Hawkins is reintroduced, he fights Zoro and loses 2 crewmates, so that's 2 more unconfirmed deaths. Between Wano Act 1 and 2, we get to see Gekko Moria for the first time since Marineford, and he summons 4 zombies, counting as 4 more dead people. After that, we learned that Absalom, the pervert from Thriller Bark, was killed for his devil fruit, which was given to Shiryu. In Wano Act 2, Zoro saves Hiyori from Kamazo/Killer, who states he has killed someone already. Also, Kamurasaki is Hiyori, so this does not count as a death. After this is Lord Yasue's execution, where he is obviously killed, since it's an execution. We head to Udon Prison, where we see a random skull outside. That's it, and after that brief detour, Ashura Doji shows Kinemon the graves of the samurai who attempted to attack Kaido after Kinemon and Momo had time traveled. I estimated there to be 136 deaths, judging by the 8 full ships, and we can see 17 in 1 full boat. We then get Kamawatsu's mini flashback, where we meet Onimaru, the pet of the dead Shimotsuki Unimaru. And now we get to see the Ringo graveyard. For every dead samurai, there is a weapon, and these weapons were able to arm the entire raid force, which had about 4,200 people before adding in the Minx, Yakuza, and Kyoshiro families. This means that at least 4,200 people were armed by the swords of dead people, so that's 4,200 more kills. We end Act 2 and cut to random moments from other characters. The only relevant ones are Rocksteady Zebek and Captain John being confirmed dead by Sengoku. Back in Wano, we get the Odin flashback, in which Odin uses Katsuzo's cremation to cook some food. We know nothing about Katsuzo, but it's still a death. We also see Kamawatsu's origins, where we learned that his mom died. We then get Orochi's backstory, which shows 6 graves, presumably belonging to Kurozumi members, as well as us learning that Orochi's grandfather was executed. The old Kurozumi lady also says that there are 4 previous daimyo who were killed by the Kurozumi. Also we know that these 2 Kurozumi guys are dead, as both their devil fruits have been used by Bon Clay and Bartolomeo. Anyways, Hyogoro's wife and 16 of his followers were killed by Kaido when Orochi wanted him gone. Funnily enough, Odin isn't the only person to die in his own execution, as an executioner falls into the oil and is presumably killed. It's not confirmed, but the last we see of him is him on fire passed out on the ground. There are also 4 bystanders who are shot by the ninja leader, but it's not confirmed if they died. Finally, Odin is executed and killed by Kaido. Obviously, he's shot in the head. We also learned that Kazuki Toki dies when Odin Castle is burned, sacrificing herself to time travel Momonosuke. Ending off this really long death-heavy flashback are Kanjuro's parents, as well as this other dude who were killed in the Kurozumi Purge. Finally, we are done with the Odin flashback. We are back to the raid on Onigashima, which starts off with Luffy maybe killing this beast pirate by flattening him like a pancake. It's not confirmed, but he's a normal dude who got hit by a Gear 4 attack. Kanjuro then infiltrates Onigashima with Momo, but Kanjuro says that all the guards who faced him met an untimely end by his weapon, implying that he killed them. I counted 5 guards in a previous panel, so that's 5 kills. And it's black and white time. This video was researched from February 2024 to June 2024. I had to speedrun reading the entirety of One Piece, and the script also took me about 6 months, so some of this might be a little outdated. Notably, there have been new colored manga volumes, and Egghead has ended. Anyways, I don't have time to re-screenshot the colored manga, so we're going to do with black and white. Anyways, a lot of stuff happens now, like Kaido beating everyone's asses, and Ashura Doji sacrifices himself to push Kanjuro out of a window before he suicide bombs everyone. This kills both Doji and Kanjuro. We then get Yamato's flashback, where we see 3 of the former daimyo locked in a cave with Yamato. We know all 3 die, but one of them is Unimaru, who's already been confirmed dead. And apparently some other random guy was killed by Kaido for giving Yamato food and a blanket. We learned that Shimotsuki Kozaburo, Kuina's grandfather, died sometime before the series began. Next are these 4 idiots who wanted to snitch on King to the world government, but were quickly burned to death by King. After King's defeat, Zoro might have died. He sees the Grim Reaper, but has never confirmed whether or not this is actual death, a hallucination, or just Brook. It doesn't seem like he truly died, so he's not going to be counted. Finally, we get the unconfirmed death of Big Mom, who is currently chilling underneath the surface of Wano after being tag-teamed by Law and Kid. We haven't seen Big Mom since this, but she is pretty strong, so her death remains unconfirmed. Next is Fukuro Kuju, who had one of the most intense fights in the series with Raizo, where they literally did nothing. This fight came down to who could withstand the fire the longest, and Fukuro Kuju ended up passing out on fire, leading Raizo to win. He hasn't been seen since, but since he's an elite ninja, there's a chance he survived, although he did pass out while being on fire. Next is the double death of Izu and CP0 Maha. They both shot each other in an epic anime moment, and Izu has been confirmed dead, however Maha's death remains unconfirmed. Unlike Maha, however, CP0 Guernica has been confirmed dead after sustaining a lethal blow from Kaido after interrupting his fight with Luffy. However, he stayed alive long enough to get a picture of Gear 5 Luffy. Now is one of the most unclear deaths of the video, which is Luffy's death. It is heavily implied that Luffy died here, mostly because Kaido used a very powerful attack, and Momo said that he couldn't hear Luffy's voice. Plus, he looks pretty dead. However, he obviously didn't fully die since he came back to life and proceeded to destroy Kaido. I'm counting this as a revival just because it seems that Luffy was dead for a short time. Next is Orochi, who was beheaded multiple times by Denjiro and Kaido, and then burned alive by Kanjuro. Honestly, his death wasn't bad enough for such an evil villain. Speaking of, I'm pretty sure this is the first major villain in the series to have been confirmed dead. The only other villains who even kind of count are NL, but he was revived, and Big Mom, but that's still unconfirmed. On the same note as Big Mom and Orochi, Kaido is sent underneath Wano's surface and never to be seen again. His death remains unconfirmed, although his defeat was only 150 chapters ago, so who knows if he'll appear again. In a mini flashback, we learned that at least 4 prisoners died in Udon during Orochi's rule. And now we must talk about the grunts of the raid. CP0 said that each side lost people during the raid, but whether this meant being knocked out or killed is unclear. Plus, the entire mansion caught fire, but there were no confirmed kills from the fire. There's also the Toby Roppo, who haven't been seen since their defeats, and specifically Black Maria and Page 1 may have died. as Black Maria was snapped in half by Robin, and Page 1 was Falcon Punched by Big Mom. I won't count those characters as kills though, just because they feasibly could survive. The final unconfirmed death of the arc is Basil Hawkins, who might be the only character where saying there's a 99% chance he's dead is true, as he predicted there was only a 99% chance he'd survive the raid. I'll add him to the unconfirmed death list since he does seem to have sustained a lot of damage, and there's only a 1% chance he's alive. We're finally done with Wano. We end the longest arc in the series with 4,410 deaths, mostly from unnamed Wano residents whose swords were used during the raid, and surprisingly only 17 unconfirmed kills and 1 revival. And now for Egghead Island and Elbaf. Egghead Island ended halfway through script in this video, and I'm not going back to count every single death. So the major deaths are Vegapunk Stella, who was killed by Kizaru and Saturn. There's also King Cobra, who was killed in a reverie by Emu and the 5 Elder Stars. Shaka, Pythagoras, and Atlas were all killed but revived by Edison, and it's unclear whether or not they truly died or just lost their bodies, and their consciousness was fine. St. J. Garcia Saturn was killed by Emu for failing to stop Luffy, and was replaced by Figurlin Garling. Eustace Kid and the Kid Pirates may have been killed by Shanks, but it remains unconfirmed. This applies to the Heart Pirates too, as they were wrecked by Blackbeard, but we know Law has escaped. Garp has also been confirmed alive, as he was not killed by Kuzan. The rough total of Egghead Island is 3 deaths and 15 unconfirmed kills, and maybe 3 revivals. Elbaf literally just started, but already has 1 confirmed kill of the previous King of Elbaf, King Harald, who was killed by Loki. Other than that, Jaguar de Sol has had something happen to him, and it has something to do with him not being able to get up. We don't know what happened, but I think an old character may have returned for revenge. Downty Stairs might be back. Elbaf currently has 1 death. And of course, a week after I wrote this part of the script, Sol and Robin reunite, so it seems that he's all good. Finally, we get to the arc rankings. The top 3 least deadly arcs, excluding arcs that have no deaths at all, were Return to Sabaody, Zoe, and Reverse Mountain. Return to Sabaody has 11 unconfirmed kills, making it technically the arc with the lowest amount of kills, since none are confirmed. Zoe had 500 unconfirmed kills, and because they're unconfirmed, this arc manages to get 2nd place. Finally, Reverse Mountain is 3 chapters long and only has 1 death, and the only death we see is a skeleton in Laboon's stomach. For the 3 most deadly arcs, we have Wano, Baratier, and Whiskey Peak, with Thriller Bark coming in close in 4th place. Wano had 4,410 confirmed kills, although most were from unknown samurai. Baratier comes in next with 4,948 kills, mostly from Don Creek's fleet, as well as the Cook Pirates and the cruise ship that were raided, as all of them died. This arc also gives us the character with the highest kill count, Dracula Mihawk, mostly because he killed 4,900 people because they disturbed his nap. Finally, Whiskey Peak only won because I didn't want to count exactly how many graves were on the Cactus Rocks, but there were a lot. Finally, we get to the total kill count. The entirety of One Piece has 16,879 confirmed kills, 5,888 unconfirmed kills, and 5 to 8 revivals depending on how you count them, 49 dead homies, and 2 debatable deaths in Smiley and the Going Merry. If we add this all up, One Piece has exactly 22,826 deaths in total. Thank you for watching. This video took about 10 months to make, and is half the reason I haven't posted since June. Jesus Christ, it's been a while. I honestly don't have many videos planned after this. Maybe a return of the One Piece of Lore series, but I don't know. I hadn't had much motivation. This video was also made partly because O'Hara made a video like this, but he left out a lot of deaths, so I figured I'd make a comprehensive death list, although I likely missed a bunch of deaths, since I had to read 1,100 chapters of manga as fast as I could with the rest of my life in a way. Anyways, that'll be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.